The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. This is how the birth of Jesus Christ came about. When his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found with child through the Holy Spirit. Joseph, her husband, since he was a righteous man, yet unwilling to expose her to shame, decided to divorce her quietly. Such was his intention when, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary your wife into your home, for it is through the Holy Spirit that this child has been conceived in her. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke, he did as the angel of the Lord had commanded him, and took his wife into his home. The Gospel of the Lord. So to start, I'm going to steal a line from Dan Schmidt from one of his songs. I think I still remember it. A long time ago, or is it once upon a time, Dan? Huh? Yeah, okay, good, he's paying attention. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, love came down. So when I was at the Christmas concert, I heard that song. And that line is the one that stuck with me. Love came down. So what kind of love is this that comes down? What kind of love is it that causes our God to come to us as a baby in a manger? What kind of love is it that can endure everything? It can endure anything. It can endure rejection. It can even endure that death on that cross so that we can be free and we can live. What kind of love is it that causes our God to want to be with us constantly in the middle of our messy lives? To hang on to us when we're afraid, to hold us when we weep, to notice us when we're feeling lonely, to be with us and never ever leave us, even when we doubt. What kind of love is it that can be so powerful and so overwhelming that it can just bring us to tears and make us wonder sometimes, how can it be that we are worth loving that much? That love that came down is an unexplainable, amazing, and limitless love. And it's because of that love, and because of the words that we heard in our gospel, they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. We can know for sure that our God is with us every moment of every day, constantly loving us. So we hear those words, right? But somehow we need proof. How do we really know? How can we experience that love that God has for us every single day? Well, in our gospel, Joseph, he had to pay attention to notice God's presence in his life. He had to pay attention to his dream. So for us, it's not too different. If we look around and we pay attention, we can find God wherever we are. So last week, I gave you all an assignment Do you remember? No? Nobody remembers? Well, that doesn't matter because nobody remembered all day that they got an assignment last week. So the assignment was this. It was to list something, at least one thing every day when you saw an act of kindness. So did anybody during the week see an act of kindness, either to yourself or amongst other people, that you would like to share? You lent Hector your car.
Yeah.
Is that an act of kindness or a big risk?
Well, it was the act of kindness, but it also spread to my son, who never lost 1 hour of work from it. And
Okay, so your son was able to get to work
yes,
because
I
Gloria,
got a new car.
and you got a new car.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, good for you. Anybody else have anything they'd want to share, an act of kindness? Yes. Yeah. So, somebody helped her get unstuck. Somebody else over here have something? Yes. This fine-looking gentleman right here. His neighbors plowed out his driveway because they didn't want him to die of a heart attack.
Hey, Deacon.
Yes?
Lofton's called me yesterday and said, "Is your driveway clean yet?" And I said, "No." They said, "You want us to come and snow blow it?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Good.
And they did.
Cool.
Yay.
So I think I told this story once before, but I was shoveling my driveway, and my neighbor, who had a snowblower, came over, and she blew it out for me. And she said, "You know, I'm not doing this because I like you at all. I'm doing this because I didn't want to see you fall over dead, because there's no way I'm going to give you mouth-to-mouth in your driveway." So, can you see God in all those interactions? They seem pretty simple, right? Pulling you out when you're stuck, taking care of your driveway, lending you a car. But can you see how God is just, through those, just caring for you and loving you and taking care of you? You know, God is with us in the relationships between us. So God is in that relationship between you and Gloria. God is in that relationship between you and that man and that 5-year-old son. God is in the relationship between you and your neighbor who took care of your driveway. God is in the relationship between these two families taking care of one another. God is present in the relationships between us. You know, when I read this book, and the author put it this way, he said, you know what, we're caught up in a constant flow of God's love. We're constantly receiving, we're constantly giving, we're constantly being loved, and we're constantly giving love, we're constantly loving. Through these relationships, through our relationships, we're caught up in this flow of God's love. And we can experience God's love for us through the kindness and compassion of people around us, just like you all said. Especially people that we know that really care for us. You know, so when we struggle and somebody comes to help us, helps us get unstuck, lends us a car. When we're sad and somebody comes and gives us a hug and offers us comfort, or when we are afraid and somebody comes to be with us in that situation and stay with us in that situation that makes us afraid. Or even when we begin or start to doubt ourselves or doubt God, and somebody gives us encouragement. Those are all God with us. God's love flowing through others to us. But we give out God's love too. We pass it on. when we share that kindness and compassion that, we received. So through our relationships, we're caught up in this endless flow of God's love. But here's the deal. We can choose to stop the flow. When we isolate ourselves or tell somebody that's trying to help us, you know what, I don't need your help, I'll take care of this myself. So Vicki, if you would have said that to that man who was trying to help you, go away, I don't need you, I'll take care of myself, that would have stopped the flow of God's love. And sometimes we hear somebody say something like, you know what, you guys just go on, live your lives, don't worry about me, I'll stay right here. You don't need to write, you don't need to call. Don't worry about me. I don't want to be a burden. That stops the flow. It robs people of the chance to share God's love. Our selfishness can also stop the flow. When we gossip or we judge, or maybe we see somebody in need. We see somebody who is stuck in the road. We see somebody whose driveway needs to be shoveled, and we know he might die if he does it. We see somebody who's sad, who's afraid, somebody who is lost. And we feel that tug in our hearts to do something, but we choose to do nothing. We choose just to turn the other way. When we do that, we stop the flow. And not only do we stop the flow, but we might be missing out on a moment in our life that is really, really meaningful, a moment that really, really matters. And we may miss out on the reason we're here on this earth in the first place, just to love. My daughter told me a story about a patient she worked with when she was doing a clinical rotation in a psychiatric hospital. And she went to work and went into this elderly man's room to help him get ready. He was really excited because his daughter was coming to visit him that day. So he wanted his hair combed nice, he wanted to be clean, he wanted his best clothes on, which was just about everything he had. So she helped him into his wheelchair, took him down to the waiting room, and was going to wait with him until his daughter arrived. She waited with him all day, and nobody came. So she put him back into his chair, took him back to his room, helped him put his clothes away, helped him back into his bed, and then went home. She came back the next day and did the same thing. And then the next day and did the same thing. She did it many days, and nobody ever came. So we look at things like that from the outside, we might think, you know what, that's silly. That's a waste of time. But for her, in that moment, that is what really mattered. For her, as a nurse, that is why she was there. To let the love of God flow through her to this lonely man so that God could love him too. So there are many things in our lives that we sometimes think are too silly to do, or that we don't have time to do, or it's an interruption or whatever, so we don't do it. But those may be the times that really matter. And those may be that time might be the reason you are placed here on earth in the first place. So when we run into those times, whether it's at work or at school or wherever, I think we can have the courage to go with it, to do what God would want us to do. And I don't think we need to be afraid to do that, because you know what? He's already there in that situation before you get there, waiting for you. So once upon a time, every time, in the depths of our hearts, love comes down. God is present. God is with us in the relationships between us. We are caught up in a constant flow of God's love, constantly being loved and constantly loving. And you know what? We are never, ever, ever alone. Emmanuel, God is with us. That's really, really good news.